Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today we got some pretty interesting news from Jasmy, and I've actually been kind of waiting a little bit of a while to talk about this. I've received several comments on my channel wanting me to talk about this particular feature of Jasmy, and so I've kind of been waiting for some news like this to eventually kind of dive in and talk about it. So I'm excited to share this with you guys, and hopefully it's exciting. It's as exciting to you as it is to me. So before we get started with the news of the day, I just want to show you Margex, which is a trading platform that I've been using. I've been using it for the past probably couple of weeks so far with relatively decent success. You can see I've got a couple of orders open right now. Essentially, we'll see if we get a bounce kind of off some of the bottoms that we've seen today. I know, the market has been pretty rough for kind of everything. And so, I am starting to see that we are hitting like levels of support. And so I'm expecting to see a bounce. With Jasmy, unfortunately, I missed kind of the break below this wedge here. And we could have kind of caught the ride back up. If this does continue to bounce back into this trend line, and it does seem like it might bounce back, I'll probably enter a trade here. But at least as of right now, I'm just kind of sitting on my hands waiting for a structure to form that seems to make sense. And then, I'll trade off of that. One of the most important things when you're trading is don't just trade to trade. That's a really great way to lose your money. So don't do that. And also, if you don't feel comfortable, especially trading on leverage, like it can be pretty risky. So just make sure you know what you're doing and you feel comfortable with what you're doing. If you do want to try it though, if nothing else than to keep yourself, keep yourself away from the boredom of what is this current market, feel free to use my link below. Margex is giving you a $10,000 sign up bonus on trading fees right now. And then they're also doing a $500,000 Caspa airdrop, which is definitely, really good for the Caspa fans out there. And even if you're not and you're just wanting to maybe start collecting a Caspa bag because you think it's interesting but maybe not enough to buy your own, this could be a great way to get some free Caspa. So if you're interested, feel free to check the link below. The other thing that's really cool about Margex is there's no VPN and no KYC required, so you can essentially just sign up and get started trading, which is really nice. So moving on, one thing I wanted to check is there's actually a liquidation map for Jasmy specifically, which is really cool. So I wanted to look at this today. Those of you who watch my channel consistently, we love the liquidation map. Overall, I feel like it's actually been pretty accurate. So I do try and very regularly look at this and kind of see where the general trend of the market is. Usually I only look at Bitcoin and Ethereum just because those effectively, they're the ones that move the market, just because that's where most of the liquidity is. And technically, the smaller coins usually they just kind of follow the leaders, right? And so even if Jasmy is sitting contrary to what Bitcoin is sitting at, it usually may not make that big of a difference. You can see up here, this is about 1.5 million. And if we were talking on Bitcoin, this is multiple billions at this point, right? So this is definitely, a tiny market within the larger crypto space. And so, I don't put too much stock in what we're seeing here. If it does coincide with what we're seeing in Bitcoin, then, maybe that will make me feel a little bit better. But ultimately, this just isn't a large enough market to have it move the entire market. And this does just kind of copy what Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the bigger guys do. So, but anyway, as we can see on the 1 day, there is definitely some longs sitting to the downside. And then, we do have some shorts, but they're up closer to the 1.8, 1.9 area. If we look at the 7 day, we're actually pretty much evened out, but there's a little bit more of a short bias. And then if we go to 30 day, I'm assuming we'll probably see a little bit more of a short bias as well. Yeah, and here on the 30 day, we can see, it's definitely very, very biased towards the shorts, which again, that kind of makes sense just given the market that we're in. Things are overall pretty, pretty uneasy. And so, this looks, I guess, pretty good, but overall from the liquidation side, I guess we could see a move to the downside. This is something that I'm definitely not going to be acting on right now, just because, like I said, the numbers here are so much smaller than what we're seeing on Bitcoin. So if we were to move up to Bitcoin, we can see on 30 day, this is 8 billion, not 5 million or whatever that was. So I definitely think, if I'm going to be trading on Jasmy, I still probably will look toward Bitcoin liquidation charts, just because Bitcoin, at least at this point, it is Bitcoin season. Bitcoin moves the market. So that's probably what I'm going to be doing in the short term, but I am kind of keeping close-ish tabs on some of these smaller liquidation charts to see if the markets really do actually react to those, or if it's almost purely based on Bitcoin. So I am kind of starting to test that out, and we'll see how it goes. So if we look at the recent update of the day, we can see that Hara, who is the Jasmy CFO, he actually posted something regarding Junction. And Yes, I know this is what we've all been waiting for. Junction is something that has been brought up multiple times in my comment section. There's been a lot of questions surrounding it. I have kind of intentionally held off on covering anything about it just until we got a little bit more information, because this is something that currently is not active, but they are essentially working towards including this within the larger Jasmy ecosystem, which I think is awesome, right? And there's a lot of reasons why that we're going to get to in a second. But ultimately, this is really, really good news in my opinion. In addition, this is something that really kind of ties together the Jasmy ecosystem, right? Like Jasmy has the ability to essentially collect the data and have people store their own data. Why not also provide the platform where people can then would use the data to do something with it, i.e. AI models and stuff like that, right? That to me makes total sense. Junction is what would allow for that. And so this is definitely a very welcome update. And this is going to unlock billions, in my opinion, as far as just the additional market opportunities that we can see. So if we go over to CoinGecko, and this is partially to illustrate my point, these are AI coins by market cap. Now we need to be careful here because some of these are like actually focused on the AI models themselves, while others are providing the compute for AI. So near, I would say maybe doesn't fit exactly. ICP, I would say probably does fit pretty closely. Artificial Superintelligence Alliance probably doesn't fit. Render, Akash, and ICP are probably kind of the biggest ones as far as like providing compute for these models to run on. So as we can see, ICP's got about 3.3 billion, Render's about 1.8, and Akash is about 500 million. In the peak of like this like mini alt run that we saw in March, I think these were all about double. I think ICP was actually closer to like 3 or 4x. Render, I think, was 3x. Akash, I think, was 2x. So we can see the combination of market caps here. This is looking at about 5 to 6 billion. In the peak of like the mini alt run, that was probably 12 to 15 billion. So tens of billions of dollars of value within these decentralized compute networks. So this is definitely a very, very large market. And this is a really big fish for Jasmy to go after, right? And so I think Junction itself is a really welcome improvement, and it makes sense with what Jasmy's doing, right? Like if they're already essentially collecting the data and they've got the storage and the like repositories for all this data, why not just implement a place to essentially process all of that data that people are going to be looking to use on your platform? Makes total sense. So looking at Junction, we can see that it's essentially a layer 2 for decentralized AI, right? Reading here, it says, Junction is the first layer 2 to provide verifiable, synergetic, and scalable AI service. Junction uses smart contracts to automate and dynamize machine learning and artificial intelligence. Key elements like AI models, GPU computing power, data feeding, and data labeling are all integrated into Junction for co-processing. So essentially, this is very much like Akash or Render or things like this, right? But also the key thing that those projects don't have is they also don't have the data, right? Jasmy has the data. And so this to me is almost like, this is a really, really big improvement. And this is a big deal for Jasmy because we can see the market caps that some of these tokens are at, right? Like if we're looking at Render, I mean, they're close to double what Jasmy is, and they don't even collect the data like Jasmy does. So to me, I mean, that right there is an easy kind of gauge where we can see how some of this looks. Obviously ICP, this isn't maybe a perfect comparison just because ICP does do a lot more than just provide the network for the compute, but also Jasmy does too, right? So this is what we can see, ICP is almost double what Render is, and ICP does more than just provide the network for compute. So, it's possible to me that the fair value at this point in time for Jasmy could be somewhere between these two, right? Which is obviously a lot more than where we're at right now. Again, not financial advice. I have no way to know for sure. I'm just looking at this type of stuff, purely just trying to kind of look at kind of some peers within the larger market and see where we sit in relation to those peers. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now. As we can see, they go through it and essentially kind of go into more of the details. Jasmy overall, I feel like in all of their websites, they're very good at providing a lot of really great high quality detail, but not just bombarding us with all of this like information that's super technical and really hard to understand. So we can see here that they do a really good job of kind of explaining how this works. And we can see, essentially the layer 2, how it stacks up and how people get their like AI and like their models on the market, right? So this is something, this graph right here is a little bit confusing to me, because we can see on this side essentially what they're comparing to, and we can see what is kind of was lit up, right? And so here we can see BitTensor, Render, Dirt, Ocean, Ritual, IO.net. Like I'm wondering if that's kind of where it stops, and then Fetch, Sleepless, Longchain, all those are maybe what's not covered, but maybe they'll be covered in the future. This is something that I'm a little unclear on currently, but overall we can see there's a lot of big names mentioned here, and Junction is essentially looking to replace a lot of this, becoming more of like an all-in-one platform. So for me, this is really, really bullish, and this is something that if they can get it to work out at the scale that they're hoping, I mean, this is going to be nuts for Jasmy and the token price overall. This is where we start to combine the IoT plus the AI plus the the data aggregation plus they're launching these carbon credit networks. Like there's so many things. I mentioned this actually in a recent video where I was talking with Tyler, and that's on his channel. You can go check it out there. It's the Crypto Catch Up if you're interested. But we were talking about the recent development with this carbon credit network, and I spoke a little bit about Google and Apple and Amazon and these trillion-dollar companies and where they started versus where they are now, right? Google was just a web browser. Apple was just a computer. Amazon was just an online bookstore, right? But now they're like these massive mud monsters of everything that you could imagine, and that's what's essentially turned them into these trillion-dollar companies, right? Jasmy seems to me that they're kind of taking a similar path, right? They started out as just a like IoT data aggregation or collection layer, right? But now they're pulling in the like AI processing layer for all of this data that they're collecting, and they're creating a layer for like carbon credits that I think makes total sense to be on the blockchain, right? Like once those carbon credits are vetted, they're there. Like and that type of stuff makes a lot of sense to me. And this is where I think we could see Jasmy really doing some pretty insane numbers, because they're delivering, or at least in the process of delivering on a lot of this stuff, which is relatively uncommon, I would say, in the crypto space, depending on which projects you follow. So this is something that for me is really exciting and really motivating to see kind of how these guys are going to develop over time. So as you guys know, I love talking about Jasmy, and so getting my videos in front of as many people as possible to show them kind of the value that Jasmy can provide to the world is something that I'm obviously very excited about and would love your help with. So if you can help me with that, a like and subscribe really does go a really long way. Also, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to interact with me, leaving me a comment is a great way to do that. I do read and respond to all of my comments. So if you have a question or concern or feedback or anything that you just want to talk, like please leave me a comment. I will respond, and you'll be hearing from me there. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.